There is a woman who carries an invisible sanctuary within her soul as she moves through the world. She exudes the quiet confidence of someone who has learned to hear what others cannot. These are the patterns practiced only by emotionally mature women, and they reshape not just their inner world, but the reality around them. What you are about to explore are not simple habits. They are sacred practices that arise naturally when a woman has delved deeply enough into herself to discover the source of her strength. These practices cannot be forced or imitated. They flow from the soul like a spring, pure and unstoppable. You will recognize them not as new ideas, but as reflections of something already present within you, waiting to be acknowledged. The first practice begins in the delicate space between sleep and wakefulness. In those moments when the soul is still soft from its nocturnal journey, an emotionally mature woman does not rush from bed into the noise of the world. Instead, she engages in what Jung might have described as a ritual of return, not to the pressing external demands that will soon occupy her attention, but to the deeper self that transcends the concerns of the small ego. She may spend these moments in quiet reflection, noticing her breath flow like timeless tides through her body. Alternatively, she might write in a private journal, allowing her dreams and intuitions to spill onto the page like seeds falling onto fertile soil. While the outside world clamors for her immediate focus, she understands that the energy she brings to her day must first be drawn from the wellspring of her own presence. This is not selfishness. It is profound insight. Jung observed that the ego represents only a portion of our full psychological reality. Beginning the day solely from the ego leads to a mindset of scarcity. Yet when we connect with the deeper self first, we tap into a reservoir of energy that feels inexhaustible. This vitality is evident in how she navigates her day, moving as if she carries her own weather system, calm and centered regardless of the turbulence surrounding her. The second practice stems from her relationship with solitude, which requires careful understanding. The emotionally mature woman recognizes the essential difference between loneliness and sacred aloneness. Loneliness is a pain that pushes us toward others out of need, while sacred aloneness is a conscious choice rooted in fullness, a deliberate turn toward the rich inner world Jung described, filled with symbols, dreams, and archetypal wisdom. She may spend hours on a Saturday afternoon walking alone in nature or sitting quietly in her favorite chair. To an outside observer, it might seem like she is doing nothing, yet inwardly, she is engaged in the most significant work of her life, listening to the voice of her own soul, which speaks through images, sensations, and sudden insights that arise when the mind finally quiets. This practice of regular retreat is not a form of escape, but a deep engagement with reality itself. Jung observed that the unconscious communicates through symbols and metaphors, and receiving these messages requires spaciousness. In a culture dominated by constant noise and distraction, she becomes a guardian of inner silence, protecting it as fiercely as a mother safeguards her children. The third practice is reflected in her connection with her physical body, highlighting another layer of her maturity. Unlike women trapped in constant self-improvement or those who have learned to ignore their body's signals to meet external expectations, she has cultivated what can truly be described as embodied wisdom. She recognizes that her body is not just a vessel for her mind, but a complex system of communication through which deeper insights emerge. When she notices tension in her shoulders, she doesn't automatically reach for medication or force herself to keep going. Instead, she pauses and considers what this tension might be signaling. Jung noted that the body frequently reveals what the conscious mind refuses to see. That headache, for instance, could be her soul's way of indicating that she has been overthinking while neglecting her feelings. Insomnia can sometimes serve as a signal to pay closer attention to dreams and nighttime visions that may carry meaningful guidance. She has learned to read her body as if it were a sacred text, recognizing that every symptom can hold significance and every sensation might serve as a doorway to deeper self-understanding. This is not hypochondria. It reflects a refined sensitivity to the wisdom of the body. By honoring her body's needs, whether for rest, movement, nourishment, or touch, she engages in what Jung described as the transcendent function, a bridge connecting conscious awareness with the unconscious. The fourth practice elevates writing into a sacred act, though this requires insight beyond the surface. She does not write to impress others or produce content for public consumption. Instead, writing becomes a tool for what Jung called active imagination, a method for direct dialogue with unconscious parts of the psyche. Her journal transforms into a space where she can express aspects of herself that have no other outlet, exploring dreams, fears, and deepest desires without judgment or censorship. Through this practice, she begins to identify patterns in her emotional life that might otherwise remain unseen. The recurring dream that has visited her for months suddenly gains clarity when she writes about it for the seventh time. The relationship patterns that once puzzled her become unmistakably clear as she examines her own words from multiple perspectives. Writing transforms into a form of psychological exploration, uncovering hidden insights about herself. You may notice that she often pauses before speaking in conversations, as if consulting an internal guidance system. This is not hesitation, but careful discernment. The emotionally mature woman has cultivated what Jung referred to as the observing ego, the aspect of consciousness capable of witnessing its own processes without becoming fully entangled in them. She has learned to distinguish between reactions driven by old wounds and responses emerging from her authentic self. This inner awareness creates space around her emotions, allowing her to choose her reactions instead of being controlled by unconscious impulses. When someone makes a comment that might have once provoked her younger self into defensive anger, she can now recognize the anger, acknowledge it, and respond from a deeper place of understanding. This is not repression, but deliberate choice, the result of years spent engaging sincerely with her own psychological landscape. The fifth practice reveals itself in her careful attention to what she allows into her awareness, thoughtfully curating the sensory input she receives. Her choices regarding what enters her sensory environment reveal a deeper level of sophistication. She intuitively grasps what Jung clearly stated: the psyche is deeply shaped by the images, sounds, and energies we take in through our senses. She may select her music with care, aware that certain melodies can evoke calm or spark creativity, while others might leave her feeling unsettled. Similarly, she is deliberate about the movies she watches, the books she reads, and the conversations she participates in, not out of strictness, but from a clear understanding of how external stimuli influence her inner world. This approach is not about creating a sterile life, but about mindful curation. She surrounds herself with beauty, truth, and inspiration, viewing them not as indulgences, but as essential elements. She recognizes that her inner world is like a garden that demands careful attention. Part of this care involves consciously choosing what seeds are planted through her senses. The sixth practice manifests in the art of silent presence. In social settings, her presence carries a distinct quality that others often sense but cannot easily describe. She does not feel the need to fill every pause with conversation or prove her value through constant action. Instead, she provides something increasingly rare in our society: genuine presence. She listens not only to the words being spoken, but also to the emotions beneath them, the unspoken desires and the hidden fears. Her focus becomes a gift, creating space for authentic connection. Jung explored this concept of presence as a form of healing influence. When someone has undertaken their own psychological work, faced their shadow, integrated projections, and brought unconscious patterns into awareness, they naturally radiate a quality that others find both soothing and inspiring. She does not force this presence, It arises organically from her inner work. The seventh practice is evident in the way she protects her energy through daily devotion. How she manages her energy highlights a practical aspect of her maturity. She has learned to distinguish between activities that nourish her soul and those that deplete it, between relationships that encourage her authentic self and those that require her to adopt a mask. This is not an act of selfishness, but rather a refined awareness of psychological dynamics, the understanding that just as the body needs specific nutrients to stay healthy, the mind and soul also require particular forms of nourishment to remain vibrant. Each evening, she may spend around 20 minutes on a seemingly simple routine, lighting a candle, playing gentle music, and allowing herself to process and release the energies accumulated throughout the day. To a purely rational perspective, this might appear as mere self-indulgence. However, she recognizes that she is engaging with subtle forces that operate beneath the surface of ordinary consciousness, cleansing her energy field in the same way she might maintain her physical health. This regular practice of energy care is not rooted in New Age ideas, but in a deep understanding that consciousness has a measurable vibrational quality, which can be shaped through focused intention and ritual. Carl Jung himself explored the concept of synchronicity, the meaningful alignment between inner psychological states and external events. She has learned to navigate these connections consciously, taking responsibility for the quality of energy she contributes to the world. The ninth practice is reflected in her mastery of boundaries, carried with quiet dignity. Her approach to setting limits shows the difference between reactive self-protection and conscious self-sovereignty. She does not establish boundaries out of anger or a sense of victimhood, but from a clear understanding of her values and needs. When she says no, it is not a dismissal of others, but an affirmation of her own truth. When she says yes, it comes from genuine desire, not obligation or fear. This sense of sovereignty is not achieved through aggression or defensiveness, but through what Jung described as the integration of the animus, the masculine aspect of the feminine psyche that offers inner authority and the ability to make clear judgments. She has learned to draw on her inner masculine wisdom without becoming rigid or losing connection to her feminine nature. Her sovereignty is evident in the way she moves through the world. She neither apologizes for her presence nor demands special treatment, yet she occupies the space that is rightfully hers with grace and dignity. When others try to manipulate her through guilt, anger, or emotional pressure, she remains grounded in her own truth. She understands that while she cannot control how others respond to her choices, she can control the integrity with which she makes them. The 10th practice stems from her deep trust in the soul's natural timing. Most importantly, she has cultivated a profound confidence in what Jung described as the wisdom of the unconscious, the subtle intelligence operating beneath rational thought, often aware of truths the conscious mind has yet to comprehend. She has learned to differentiate between the ego's anxious urgency and the soul's patient timing. While the world pushes for quick solutions and immediate satisfaction, she remains attuned to a deeper rhythm. This trust is reflected in her willingness to wait for clarity before making major decisions, allowing creative endeavors to unfold at their own pace, and permitting relationships to grow organically without forcing early intimacy or commitment. She understands that honoring the soul's timing when facing uncertainty is not passivity, but rather a refined form of active waiting, remaining alert to the subtle signals and synchronicities that eventually guide the way forward. Her approach to pain and difficulty highlights another dimension of her maturity. She recognizes that suffering is often a necessary component of consciousness and that avoiding pain can ultimately create greater hardship. When challenging emotions arise, grief, anger, disappointment, or fear, she does not rush to escape through distraction, substances, or busyness. Instead, she has developed the ability to stay present with her emotional reality, understanding that emotions serve as messengers, carrying essential insights about her deepest needs and values. This does not imply that she seeks out suffering or takes pleasure in it, but rather that she has cultivated the psychological resilience to face life's challenges while staying grounded. She recognizes that resilience is not about being impervious, but about being flexible without breaking, experiencing emotions fully without being consumed, and maintaining her core sense of self even amid turmoil. Jung noted that many psychological difficulties stem from trying to avoid life's natural challenges instead of confronting them with awareness and courage. The emotionally mature woman has learned to navigate the natural rhythms of human life, joy and sorrow, growth and contraction, clarity and confusion, rather than resisting them. Her inner development subtly but profoundly influences the quality of her relationships. She no longer relies on others to complete her or meet needs that can only be fulfilled through her own self-relationship. This shift allows for authentic intimacy because she interacts from a sense of completeness rather than psychological deficiency. She values others for who they are rather than for what they can provide. Simultaneously, she has honed her discernment regarding which relationships merit her time and energy. She no longer feels compelled to maintain connections that deplete her vitality or demand compromises to her authentic self. This is not a sign of coldness, but a mature recognition that emotional resources are finite and should be allocated thoughtfully. As a result, her friendships are often marked by depth and meaningful connection rather than sheer quantity. She may have a smaller inner circle, but those connections are characterized by genuine understanding, mutual respect, and meaningful communication. She has learned to distinguish between friends who are truly interested in her well-being and those who are merely seeking entertainment, between those who encourage her growth and those who prefer her to stay the same. Her approach to mistakes and setbacks highlights another aspect of her emotional maturity. Instead of protecting her ego through blame, denial, or self-criticism, she has cultivated the ability to learn from her errors while maintaining her core sense of self-worth. She recognizes that mistakes are not signs of inadequacy, but natural steps in the process of growth and learning. When she notices that she has acted out of unconscious habits, perhaps responding defensively in a discussion or making a choice driven by fear rather than insight, she can acknowledge the mistake without exaggerating or overreacting. She may apologize when necessary, make amends where possible, and then use the experience as material for personal growth. This ability to forgive herself naturally extends to her capacity to forgive others. She understands that holding on to grudges ultimately harms her more than those who have caused the pain, and that forgiveness is not about excusing harmful actions, but about releasing herself from the burden of resentment. Her forgiveness is often quiet and private. She simply lets go of the emotional weight of past wounds and continues with her life. Her approach to spirituality, whether she has a religious background or not, is deeply personal and based on experience rather than rules or outward rituals. She may find the sacred in morning meditation, in sunlight falling across her kitchen table, in the eyes of her children, or in moments of connection with nature. Her spirituality is not reserved for special occasions, but is instead a constant awareness that informs her everyday life. Jung was deeply intrigued by the spiritual aspects of human experience, viewing the search for meaning as a central drive of consciousness. An emotionally mature woman cultivates her own genuine connection with the mysteries of existence, honoring both her rational mind and intuitive insight. She does not rely on others to validate her spiritual experiences, nor does she feel the need to persuade anyone of her beliefs. This level of spiritual maturity often shows itself in a profound acceptance of life's paradoxes, the way joy and sorrow coexist, how endings can signal new beginnings, and how apparent losses can transform into gains. She has developed what Jung described as the transcendent function, the ability to hold opposing forces in creative tension rather than defaulting to either-or thinking. Her understanding of time mirrors her inner growth. She differentiates between chronological time, the measured hours and minutes, and the Greek concept of kairos, a sense of meaningful time that seems to expand or contract depending on the depth of our presence and focus. She may spend an entire afternoon in her garden, appearing to do nothing, yet feeling more replenished than after a busy day filled with activities. This perspective allows her to be fully present in each moment, rather than perpetually chasing an imagined future or dwelling on past regrets. She has come to understand that life is not a problem to solve, but an experience to be fully lived, and that the quality of our attention shapes the quality of our experience. While others around her may feel pressured by deadlines and schedules, she maintains a calm inner space that allows her to respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively. She meets her responsibilities and commitments, but without the frantic energy that dominates much of modern life. She has learned to trust that there is enough time for what truly matters, recognizing that forcing natural processes often creates more difficulties than it resolves. Her generosity appears in ways that may not be immediately obvious to those used to more visible forms of giving. She may offer the gift of genuine listening to a friend in crisis, or hold space for someone's emotions without trying to fix them. She may share her insight through example rather than instruction, trusting that others will learn what they need in their own time. This generosity comes from her inner abundance, not from obligation or a desire to appear virtuous. She gives freely, without keeping track or expecting a specific return. At the same time, she has learned to receive with grace, recognizing that the ability to accept support and love is as important as the ability to give it. Her mere presence becomes a form of service, though she may not label it as such. By living authentically and refusing to engage in unconscious patterns that perpetuate suffering in relationships and communities, she gives others the permission to do the same. In this way, she embodies what Jung described as a wounded healer, someone who has transformed personal pain into wisdom and compassion. The emotionally mature woman understands that personal growth is never solely personal. As she becomes more aware, integrated, and attuned to her true self, she contributes to what Jung called the collective unconscious, the shared psychological heritage of humanity. Her inner work becomes a gift to future generations, aiding the gradual yet vital evolution of human consciousness. This awareness gives her life a sense of purpose that goes beyond personal success or recognition. She realizes that by confronting her own shadows, integrating her projections, and living authentically rather than conventionally, she creates effects that reach far beyond her immediate surroundings. She becomes part of what many spiritual traditions refer to as the invisible monastery, a community of individuals who serve life through the quality of their being, not merely through outward action. As we conclude this discussion, perhaps you notice these qualities beginning to stir within yourself. The emotionally mature woman is not an unattainable ideal. She is the natural expression of consciousness when allowed to develop without restriction. Her habits are not techniques to be learned, but organic expressions of inner wholeness, emerging like flowers from soil nurtured over years of honest self-reflection and courageous growth. The journey to emotional maturity is neither comfortable nor fast. It demands questioning assumptions, facing difficult truths, letting go of identities that no longer serve, and trusting processes beyond the control of the rational mind. Yet, for those who commit to this path, the rewards are immeasurable. A life rooted in authenticity, relationships grounded in truth rather than need, and a profound sense of belonging to the greater mystery of existence. Carl Jung emphasized that the ultimate aim of human development is individuation, becoming who we truly are beneath layers of conditioning and adaptation. The habits discussed today are not rigid rules, but reflections of what naturally arises when this process is honored. They guide us toward a way of living that acknowledges both our human limitations and boundless potential, our personal stories, and our connection to something greater than ourselves. If this exploration resonates with you, we invite you to continue this journey with us. Subscribe to our channel, where we delve into the wisdom of Carl Jung and the sacred psychology of the feminine soul. Share in the comments which of these practices already resonate with you, or which one calls to your heart most strongly. Your experiences become part of our collective exploration, contributing to a dialogue that helps us all grow in consciousness and authenticity. The path of emotional maturity is one we walk together, supporting each other toward the fullest expression of who we are meant to become.